In today's video, we're going to compare the general ledger in T form versus the general ledger in a 3-column format. Now, most of you, when you started learning about accounting, you probably started off doing the T account. And the reason why we call it T account is because your debit side and your credit side had the same columns. In order to do the T form accounts, you had to know the nature of accounts. Now, that's still applicable when you do it in the 3-column format. But most of you have realized, for example, bank is an asset, and assets have a debit nature, which means it increases on the debit side and decreases on the credit side. So if we look at the first transaction, and it says there 1st of March, capital on the debit side of bank of $10,000, it means that bank increased with $10,000 because the owner gave a contribution. The contra account involved was capital, and capital is owner's equity account, and the nature of owner's equity is credit, which means it increases on the credit side. So if you do the T form, there's your double entry. You would debit bank and you would credit capital. So most of you understand the T form. So let's just move on to the 3-column. 3-column ledger accounts is probably what most businesses use. For example, if you do online or internet banking, you will see your bank statement is in the 3-column form. So I'm doing exactly the same account. I'm doing a bank here, but instead of having a T form, we have a debit, credit, and balance column. Another advantage of this format is that after every transaction, you could calculate the balance immediately. In the old T form accounts, we had to do the whole month's transaction, then work out which side is bigger. The difference was balance carried down, and then you would bring down the balance on the first day of the next month. Right? So with the 3-column bank account, we can calculate the bank balance after every transaction. So again, if we look at that first transaction where we debited bank with capital and we credited capital with bank, how does it work in the 3-column format? Bank is still an asset. It still increases on the debit side. Capital, owner's equity, still increases on the credit side. So I put in my date. I debit bank with capital. There in the T form, I debited bank with capital. And now I put it in the debit column, and immediately that becomes my balance. And you can see I've put there debit because at this stage my debit column is bigger than my credit columns. I go to the capital account, and if you look at the T form, I said there I will credit capital. And now I go to the capital account, but I go to the credit column, and the details is still bank. So that stays the same. The details there is still capital. So that stays the same. It is just the layout of the 2 different ways of doing a ledger that is different. Now, I will leave the rest of the exercise for you to look at, but that is a short video on what is the difference between a debit, a general ledger in 3 columns and a general ledger in a T form. Maybe I should do one more just to see here. For example, we said bank decreased by $80 because we paid for stationery. I created a stationery account. You at this stage should know it's an expense. It's got a debit nature, so it increases on the debit side. So there's my double entry. Debit stationery, credit bank. So if we look at this, on the 5th of March, we will credit bank, exactly what we've done there, with the $80. Why? We bought stationery. You would create a stationery account. You know it's an expense. You know it's a debit nature, so you will debit stationery with bank. Exactly what you've done there. Now, the last thing I want to show you is if you look at bank, it's already got 2 transactions in. We've got the owner giving us capital of $10,000, and now we paid for stationery. So I credited bank. Remember, the principle stays the same. Doesn't matter which format. Bank decreases, so my balance now is 1,000 less the $80, which gives me that new balance of $9,920 on the debit side. I hope that explains it to you in more detail.